Sunny but frosty Wesel, Germany, and we want to check out those two here, the Xiaomi 17 Ultra versus the Oppo Find X8 Ultra. Ultra versus Ultra, which of those Ultras is winning in terms of cameras? Let's check it out. First, by comparing their specifications, we have a quadruple lens setup on the Oppo, so 3x and 6x lens there, where the Xiaomi utilizes one variable zoom lens for the tele, and both feature 1-inch type sensor, but the Xiaomi has a way newer technology there with low fig that promises better HDR. And the ultra wide angle will be quite interesting because I think they're using the same ultra wide angle. And of course we have some front facing shooters as well, and I think we start off with the front facing videos. Front-facing videos now on both. The Xiaomi here features autofocus, and the Oppo here features also autofocus. So both have autofocus, both are the same there, but we have a wider field of view by default on the Oppo. But the Oppo can also go to 1x, which is roughly the same as with the Xiaomi, and we can go 2x, which is also possible for people who like to film makeup or headphones or anything else close up for the selfies. Otherwise, what do you think about both of them here in terms of stabilization, in terms of colors? How about HDR? Probably maybe a bit better there on the Xiaomi actually. See a bit of blue in the sky, which we don't see on the Oppo. What do you think about both of them? The Xiaomi has a nice feature. We can switch to the back-facing cameras at 4K 30. But the Oppo doesn't have this feature, so I stop recording now and we check out the main camera sensors. Main cameras now, Xiaomi here and Oppo there. What do you think about this 1-inch type sensor on both? What do you think about the background blur and stabilization and the colors? And how good is, when I'm turning around, stabilization? Is it jittering? What do you think? How good is HDR? Maybe there in the background with a bit of sun. What do you think about both of them? Let's switch to the ultra wide angle on both. First on the Xiaomi, pressing a button, nice zoom animation, and then on the Oppo, I have to move my hand out of the way. There we go, ultra wide angle here. Ideal for vlogging probably on both. Both have a wide angle of view, but the Xiaomi is a bit wider than the Oppo for sure, with 14mm instead of just 15. What do you think about both of them? I think they're using the same sensor behind, so the same technology. How good is this working? What do you think? And now let's perform a little zoom test. So ultra wide angle we start off with, and yeah, it's a good HDR situation. Which one has the wider field of view? It's definitely Xiaomi. Which one has the better HDR? Let's go to 2x here on both. Then we go to 3.2x and 3x. Not a huge difference, but it is a bit closer on the Xiaomi. Xiaomi can go to 4.3 and we have 6x here, and we can also go to 8.6 to move it a little bit, and here we can go to 8.6 as well. So which one is closer, which one has better? Then we can go to 10x now, and here also 10x. Which one is better, more detailed and more stable? And then we can go up to 30x on the Oppo, and we can go up to 30x on the Xiaomi. Which one looks better? Which one has the advantage? Let's go back to the 1x sensor. Which one is better in terms of HDR and also in terms of this lens switching? What do you think? Let's move a little bit around there just to see how stabilization would work this way. I like actually the stabilization on the Oppo, but I think they made it a little bit more mechanical from what they had previously. And how good is HDR? Maybe I switch to the low fig version of this to check it out on the Xiaomi. So I stop the Xiaomi right now, click on video, and there's a low fig option. It's only using the main camera sensor. That's what. Do we see better HDR? I don't think so, but yeah, you be the judge there on the 1x sensor if this really makes a difference, because I think the Oppo has better HDR here in this situation. Yeah, but you be the judge. What do you think? Which one is working better? Write it down in the comment section. We start the comparison with the 1-inch type sensors on both 1x at 23mm. We have a bit of a larger aperture on the Xiaomi. The Xiaomi has this newer low-fig plus DCG sensor that might help against the Sony sensor in this particular situation. We're using Leica Vibrant on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, which is now the new default. So when you start the camera application, it's not asking, do you want Leica Authentic or Leica Vibrant? It's directly starting into Leica Vibrant. On the Oppo Find X8 Ultra, it's also the default profile. We see that, first of all, there's a bit of a glaze going on. And we have a bit more cropped in shot because 25 megapixels recorded by the Oppo. It has this high resolution mode that it's switching into since I think the last update by default. And yeah, we can see that the sun is handled a little bit nicer there on the Xiaomi in comparison to the Oppo. And we have a bit of a haze going on that might also speak for a better lens coating on the Xiaomi. Otherwise, the snow rendition is always hard for cameras, and in this case they always render it differently in terms of white balance. It's always hard to do it. A bit warmer on the Xiaomi, a bit cooler on the Oppo, and you can see it throughout the test here as well. And when we compare the other details here, we have a bit more contrast on the Xiaomi and a bit more sharpening applied, where the Oppo keeps it a little bit more real with a bit of softer edges. This is something that helps you, for example, on the bridge to see it looks a little bit more natural because it has a bit of softness there towards it, where here it's a bit of a fuzziness because it's sharpening things up, but they're very, very close together, and I would not see one better than the other. If you think one is better than the other here in this shot, then write it down in the comments. Otherwise, the ultra-wide angle, both very identical, I think. Again, rendition of the snow is a bit cooler on the Find X8 Ultra, where the Xiaomi 17 Ultra is keeping it a bit warmer. Otherwise, you can see that we have 14mm, so a bit wider. So we have our television tower in Wesel in the shot, where here it is not in the shot anymore on the Find X8 Ultra. In terms of the edge sharpness, this is where I see the Find X8 Ultra a bit struggling, even if I zoom out one time because it's 25 megapixel. It's quite soft here. In general, it has a bit of a softer edge to it, but we have a bit of haziness going on, so lens coating as well. I think they're using a bit of a weaker lens there. It's not only sharpening that is helping Xiaomi getting the sharper shot here. It is more aggressively sharpening in general, but it is not a huge difference between those two there. But when it comes to the edges, you can clearly see that the Xiaomi is holding it up much nicer together there in terms of sharpness than the Oppo, which is falling off a little bit more off the cliff in terms of sharpening. Otherwise, both basically identical. Let's take a look at the close-up shot with the tele zoom. Yes, both can do close-up shots with tele zooms. The Oppo can do real macro shots with the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. Yeah, 30mm, 30 centimeter actually, is a bit of not so good for macros. In this kind of shot, again, the snow a bit warmer, snow a bit colder here. I didn't perform a real macro shot. I just wanted to have a fancy shot in here, and I think I nailed it. You can see the crystals here. Here you can see the crystals as well, 25 megapixels. So I zoom out one time and you can see if I have to compare them side by side, the focus point was somewhat different. You see it focused slightly on the background there. Both are nailing the shot, but I think I like the Xiaomi shot a little bit better. Otherwise, the Oppo Find X8 Ultra has the macro capability that can get a bit closer than Xiaomi 17 Ultra for sure. This telezoom shot, 75 versus 70mm, so we have the variable zoom on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra that starts at 75mm, and the first tele sensor on the Oppo Find X8 Ultra starts at 70mm, f2.1 versus f2.39, not much of a difference, but we have a bit of an advantage of 25 megapixel high-res shot again by default on the Oppo. This is why you get a bit of a closer shot. If I zoom out one time, you can see that besides like snow again a little bit. Is it a bit bluer? I don't really know, but the exposure a bit darker there on the Oppo. There's not much of a difference. There's a bit of more aggressive sharpening happening on the Xiaomi. That's the only thing that I noticed, and the same goes for if you go to the maximum optical zoom of the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, which is 100mm, and we go to the second periscope zoom on the Find X8 Ultra, which is 135mm, together with the 50 megapixel, 25 megapixel shot, you get almost 2 times crop. You see that again, a bit more sharpening applied on the Xiaomi and a little less sharpening, a bit more natural look on the Oppo. We can also clearly see it here when we go to the What's window, look at here and compare it with here. Let's go out 2 times. Besides like a slight color difference there, a bit softer here, but still all the details are in here, where here it's a bit sharper. more sharpened up, but all the details are the same, so basically identical between those two. And if you go further here, this is 200 versus I try to do 200 on the Find X8 Ultra, but yeah, even though both start at 23mm, if you go to the wanted to do the same shot in terms of like this is 10x, this is 8.6x, and I also nailed 8.6x. It has a slightly bit of a weird difference there. Anyway, still we have the 25 megapixel shot, so I have to zoom in one time, zoom out one time, again a bit sharpened up. You can see the text is has a bit wider outline and maybe more processed kind of look, where here it's a bit softer and a bit more readable, but also the logo here, look at the logo. I think I see more details there on the logo, where here it's a bit too soft on the Find X8 Ultra. When we go in even further, this is 10x versus 10x. You can see 10x is 224mm on the Find X8 Ultra for some reason, even though it starts at 230. It's not really 10x in my opinion, but when we go in here 100%, you can see that it now is not 25 megapixels anymore, but 12 megapixels, so very comparable with each other. And again, in this case, I would say here it looks a bit more edited, a little bit more processed on the Oppo, and struggling a little bit more and less sharp, but it has less sharpening applied in general, where it's a bit more sharpening applied. You can see it down below here on the Xiaomi, but the Xiaomi looks a bit cleaner here on the text, and on the logo especially seems to be having more details there. And when we go even further, this is now 30x between those two. It becomes evident that there's a bit of more softness on the Oppo and a bit more sharpening applied on the Xiaomi. You can see how small this text looks like because it has a white outline. It's trying to process the text, make it sharper, where here it's leaving the text in the original font thickness, but doing less processing. And basically, I would like the Oppo shot a little bit more, but when it comes to details, I have to agree that here the leaves, for example, and the logo in general of this tree with the leaves there on top is a bit better there on the Xiaomi. The Xiaomi seems to have either better algorithms or better optics that help with this shot here, where it's struggling on the Oppo. At 60x, yeah, some people will try it at 60x as well. It is turning again, because here I think the Oppo is doing a slightly bit of a better job, and there the optical advantage of 135mm instead of only 100mm that the Xiaomi 7 would, on top of like having a variable zoom, which is in general a little bit weaker than normal fixed lens. Processing here, I think, again, in terms of text, a bit, I would give it to the Xiaomi there. It's a bit easier to read this, Kulturzentrum Zitadelle, instead of like on the Oppo. It's still readable, but a bit harder, especially the double L here, which is like not so easy to distinguish all the, and here you can see that here's like almost like connected the Z with the I, where here it's like clearly still separated a little bit. But the rest here is an AI competition. So we have this is actually painted, and it's not going towards the white yellow that you can see here towards the edges. This is something that Oppo invented, but it's also not so smoothly painted as the Xiaomi is making it out to be in terms of text. Then look at the snow here, how it couldn't do anything with the snow, where here, whoa. So in general, it's not like it's smoothing out things a lot here on the Xiaomi, where here it keeps more pixelation in, a bit more noise in, that helps in sharpening things up a little bit and creating a little bit of structure there on the Oppo. That's a huge difference. That helps here for this little clown that I think looks a little bit nicer there on the Oppo, a bit more detailed on the Oppo, also a bit more contrasty than on the Xiaomi. Also the foliage here, so there's a little bush there, looks a bit more like a bush, and here it looks like a painting, modern painting. So yes, this is the huge difference in terms of what they're doing. But when it comes to detail levels, if you really want to talk about detail levels here, I think the Xiaomi is doing a bit of a better job. You can see here those reindeers, they have a little bit of those white kind of things going on because they have something on them. Where here, you don't even see that there are two reindeers with horns. It's like almost smudged out, and the same goes for the back there. We can see two reindeers here. This could be like a slit already. So yeah, it's the matter of what you like best. But this looks like a snowman. This looks like, I don't know, like a German with this little spiky hat, almost like a Santa Claus with a spiky hat. It's a bit weird, this 60x shot. So you have to take whatever you like here to take, but I think both are doing fine at almost the same level. I think the AI editing and the processing is a bit more advanced on the Find X8 Ultra, but it's very, very close. And let's check out the selfies now. And when we take a look at the selfies, we can see the white balance difference. This is white, where this is yellow. The Find X8 Ultra is doing a slightly bit better job because it was yellow because the sun was shining on this building, and the building is not as white with the sun on shining. That is a bit more warmer than on the 17 Ultra. Both at 1x, so they're cropping in from their respective, I think, 20 and 21 millimeters. Detail levels, 32 versus, what is it, 12 should be megapixels. So let's zoom out a little bit. I think a bit sharpened up, a bit more processed looking, a bit more noisy looking, like it looks like a bit pixelated there on the Xiaomi, where it's a bit softer, smoother, more natural looking on the Oppo. Oppo is doing a nicer job also with my eyebrows, more realistic looking. In terms of selfies, I would give it slightly to the Oppo Find X8 Ultra, but the Xiaomi 17 Ultra is doing a splendid job there, also with HDR. I think both are very, very good there and close together. A bit whiter the face, a bit warmer the face. A white balance difference in general. But yeah, what I noticed is just when you take a look at here, detail levels wise, I think I see a little bit more details here on this little knob than here, which is a bit softer. So I think the potential for the Xiaomi being a bit sharper and more detailed is definitely there, but the rendition, white balance needs to be more optimized for the Xiaomi, but both are doing a fine job with a slight edge towards the Find X8 Ultra. Then I switched to Leica Authentic on the Xiaomi 70 Ultra, used Leica Vibrant before. I wanted to check out how this has an effect on colors. First of all, in terms of the white balance of snow, not much of a difference, a bit more blue again on the Oppo and a bit more warmer on the Xiaomi. Bokeh, that's the real difference between them. We have like f2.7, what is it, f1.7 versus f1.8. So f1.67 is just like not much of a difference. And the same is like, really, you have to look hard, really hard, to see a huge difference between those two. And then you can see eventually, yes, it's a bit softer. This is what I think I see on the Xiaomi, but rest is basically identical. Also here, I think it was focusing nicely here. You can see it can also get nice shots of those little ice crystals, where here the focus point was more in front, I think. Where's the focus point? I think more in front here. Both doing a fine job, both doing almost the identical job. And the more you go in, like especially like Authentic, this is like almost identical there with their 3x respectively. It's 3.2 versus 3x, so 75 versus 70 millimeter. In colors, so close. The only difference that I noticed is this car is blue here, where this car is a bit black. So this is a bit warmer and is a bit bluer kind of rendition probably, but the rest looks almost identical. Let's zoom in one time out because it's 25 megapixel, like I said, and a bit more sharpened up again on the Xiaomi. It's a bit softer, more natural looking on the Oppo. Here you can see it, and also in the rendition of the trees, it's a bit sharpened up, where this is a bit softer there in general. Both doing a very, very good job there. Nothing that I can complain about between those two. Then the ultra wide angle, here I see a bit of an underexposure of the Xiaomi 17 Ultra because it doesn't handle HDR situations so good in Leica Authentic. This is why it's also keeping in more shadows in Leica Authentic. This is why it's like a bit underexposed here. But I show you this because I want to show you that. Again, towards the sides, the lens is getting quite soft on the Oppo, and the Xiaomi doesn't suffer from this. And also the other side there is clearly visible that it's suffering from very softness there towards the side. And I think this is a win then for the Xiaomi because it's a wider angle of view and doesn't suffer so much, has a better lens setup, even though the results are very, very close together between those two. Also HDR kind of, you see, not much of a difference between those two. Still, I would give the win slightly to Xiaomi 17 Ultra for that matter. And that's it in terms of daylight photos. Let's check out the portraits. When we take a look at the portraits, and we start with the first telezoom portrait on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra at 75mm and on the Oppo Find X8 Ultra at 70mm, you can see that we have a different angle of view for sure, but we have an overexposure on the Find X8 Ultra, which is quite interesting. Yes, I have a bright light there, but it's a bit overexposing there on my left. Therefore, on my right, the left is therefore also nicely exposed, where on the Xiaomi in master portrait mode, we have it a bit of a softer look, but we have it a bit darker there. But I don't mind it so much, especially as it looks more natural, not so over-sharpened on the Xiaomi in comparison to the Oppo, which is over-sharpening here, especially my hairs, where here it is nicely done. And the overexposure is not there on the Xiaomi, which is cool. So yeah, even though like it's adding something in my eyes there, this one is like keeping it more real. So I'm more in favor of the Xiaomi here. But one could say, hey, why you're not comparing apples to apples, so 75 and 75? Yeah, gladly the Find X8 Ultra, unlike some other smartphone brands, has the ability to just choose in between. Doesn't have any only fixed zoom stages for the portrait, but you can choose in between. Xiaomi also has this now, which is also quite interesting. But let's check it out first on the Find X8 Ultra. We go to 75 and then compare with each other. And there you can clearly see again a little bit of like, yeah, sharpening, overexposure. And I still prefer the Xiaomi a bit better. Let's go and check out the further end of the zoom, which is 135mm, the maximum for Xiaomi 17 Ultra and the Find X8 Ultra. And here with f4.5, both are simulating here this. The overexposure is a bit gone on the Find X8 Ultra, but my face is a bit too yellowish there. So you see the overexposure in comparison to here, where it was a bit brighter and less yellow. Here it is a bit down, tuned down, but more yellow. Sharpness is down, which is positive, I would say. Xiaomi 17 Ultra, however, looks like this and keeps like the same kind of color. So very consistent, this color there. And the shadow there on my left side. Eyebrows recreation both suffer a bit. It's a bit too dark here, but it's also in the shadow there. So it's a bit sharpening things up there, but it's in general soft on both. I have to say, I think both are doing a fine job. It's a bit sharper there on the Oppo. It's maybe a tiny bit over sharpened, but it's looking very nice. And when it comes to the cutout itself, both managed to get my messy hair or semi-messy hair in right now. Pretty good. No issues with both of them. I have to say both are doing a fine job there. And yeah, the difference between here a bit higher, here a bit lower is simply because the lens is sitting somewhere else in the body of the phone, but I was using a tripod, so same distance, everything the same. You can see also like a little bit of yellowing up here in the background, where here it's keeping a little bit more neutral on the Xiaomi. You can see it big yellowing up. This is not so much. Anyway, the next one is 35mm, because this is also a very popular focal length, and both have to crop in from the main camera sensors. And both at f2.8 now, the virtual aperture. Yes, for some reason the Oppo is reporting it here, the Xiaomi is not, but it is f2.8, the virtual aperture here. Yeah, on first glance, both look very similar. Again, there's a bit of a difference where they put their 1-inch type sensors there. This is why one is a bit cropping down, or you see a bit more of my stomach there, here a bit less. But both are doing a fine job. If you go in 100% view, you can also clearly see it. Again, I think a little bit sharper and maybe a tiny bit over sharpened on the Oppo, maybe more sharpening applied, and a bit softer. And I like the Xiaomi look. I'm blown away by how good Xiaomi is doing those portraits here. It looks natural. It is not completely too soft. The Oppo is always very good because it was not always over sharpening, at least in comparison to others, like especially the Vivo. But here the Xiaomi is doing a very good job, I have to say. It has all the details there, and it looks not too soft, but also not too over sharpened, where it might be a bit over sharpened there on the Oppo. I don't know which one you like better. Also, the bokeh is nicely done. You can see here the cutout at f2.8, both are doing relatively good. Also the hair cutouts and so on. Both are handling this situation quite Nice. And then let's check out the 85 millimeter. Again, 85, this is one of the advantages that I see on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, because it has the variable zoom. You can go to 85 and it's not a crop in from it. It's just a variable zoom, so you get the full optics there. When the Oppo Find X8 Ultra, it's a crop in for sure on the 3X. And yeah, what do you see here? Again, a bit warmer look, a bit darker exposure there on the Find X8 Ultra, where the background is a bit warmer here. But yeah, what do you think? Which one is performing better? I would give it to the Xiaomi again. The Xiaomi looks natural. Detail levels are there. It's not over sharpening. The eyebrows don't look redrawn, where here it looks clearly redrawn a bit, and also the eyes a little bit. So yes, this is a natural hair color as well, where here it's a bit too warm. I'm blown away by how good the Xiaomi is doing. I would even call it the new portrait king, Xiaomi 17 Ultra, beating the Oppo Find X8 Ultra at portrait. It's not by a huge margin, but overall I like the more natural approach that Xiaomi is taking here, together with the good variable zoom lens that they have, or relatively good zoom lens, to get more natural portraits out of there, where they don't have to crop and resharpen everything, is a good approach here for portraits especially. So portraits definitely win for the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. Now recording in super night mode or night mode video on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra actually, and 4K 24 frames per second. What do you think about this one? Walking in the city here, there's several lights there. Everything is closed, shops are closed, but they still have lights on. Several lights still going on here. How good is stabilization here on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra? How good is the quality of the picture, the stabilization, the voice as well, because we are using the internal mics here. How good is the 17 Ultra here with its 1-inch type sensor? And what do you think? Night video now on the Oppo Find X8 Ultra. What do you think about the quality here? 1-inch type sensor. It is nighttime. I'm walking towards the cathedral here in Wesel, and there are lights, several lights there, some shops closed already, but they have some lights still on. There's a light here right on top of me. So what do you think about this one here? How is the audio quality using the internal mics? What do you think about stabilization? What do you think about the quality of this video here on the Oppo Find X8 Ultra using the main camera sensor on the back? Night shots, and we start off with a telezoom shot. This is 30x zoom on both, just to see how or which one is better in terms of details, which one is better in terms of AI processing that they have to use. I have to say on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, AI was turned off because you have to turn it on. If you are reaching 30x, for example, or even before, I think at 20x is already turning on, there's a small button appearing, and if you don't press it, AI is turned off. On the Oppo, you don't have the option even to do so. AI is always turned on. So the processing of text here, for example, here is a little bit better. Otherwise, you see a bit of a white balance difference, a way greener and bluisher on the Xiaomi, where it's a bit warmer on the Find X8 Ultra. We go into the ultra wide angle. This is where I can clearly see a bit of an advantage on the 17 Ultra. First of all, it appears to be wider. The blue building is in there, but at the same time, the red building that is here, or the red, I don't know, sign is not in here. So I was a bit cheating there or didn't find the right angle here, which is a bit weird. But Timmy is in the shot here where he was literally sitting there and sitting also here, and it's not inside of the Find X8 Ultra shot. So there is a bit of a difference between 14 and 15 millimeter. It's a bit wider on the 17 Ultra. Processing and HDR. I think this is where I see the biggest differences between those two. You can see here at the only sign that there's a bit of processing going on the Oppo. It's slight, but it is a difference towards the very smooth looking Xiaomi. And the Xiaomi also handles HDR a bit better here. There's a bit of more details retained, where here it's a bit overblown. And the same goes for the butcher sign here, that is barely readable because it's a bit overblown, and here you can read it a little bit better. And the lights here are a bit overblown, where here they're handled pretty much better. So yeah, overall I think the Xiaomi is doing a slightly bit better job there for the ultra wide angle here at nighttime, because it's not overblowing so much. So HDR seems to be a bit better working there on the Xiaomi. When we take a look at the main camera sensors, we don't see much of a difference there. The low fix sensor of the Xiaomi 17 Ultra in general might handle those light situations a bit better. We can see it here at the taco sign. It has a bit of like blurriness there, a bit of haziness going on, which we don't have so much on the Xiaomi, but it could be also the by default, like a vibrant is used here, by default a bit of more contrast that it's adding here to the shots. But it could be also HDR a tiny bit better, because you see it throughout all the shots there that it's being a bit better. But this also leads to this being a bit too darkish blue here, where this lighter blue is what the scene actually looked like for my eyes. Both handle the reds quite nicely, and I don't see much of a difference there in terms of detail levels. The price list here, for example, nicely readable on both, maybe a bit thicker there on the Xiaomi. But they are handling this situation quite nicely, and also towards the other edges there, everything nicely. Slightly different kind of angle, I think, of view. Again, both are doing a fine job. And also in terms of colors, both are very, very similar here. A bit warmer here, a bit cooler here. That's it. And when we take a look at selfies, both with illuminated screens to push my face a bit out there, you can see that it is visible on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra that I'm a bit more white, appear a bit more white, where here I'm a bit more yellowish. It could be also the rendition of the Find X8 Ultra. Find X8 Ultra creates 32 megapixel shots by default, so I zoom out a little bit to make it fair there against the Xiaomi 17 Ultra's 12 megapixel shots that we have here at PSS 14, but just ignore it, it's just 12 megapixel shots that we have here. You see that there's a bit more processing going on the Oppo. I think it has a bit more details there on the face, also on my beard. It's a tiny bit softer there on the Xiaomi, but both do a fantastic job there for this nighttime shot. The f-stop number is the whole big difference here, because both 21mm f2.4, so we have the background a little bit sharper there than here, which is a bit blurrier. And then overall, I think I really have to say I'm surprised, because I like Oppo's more natural rendition usually a bit better, but there's a bit softer look on the Xiaomi, also has something to it. Maybe a bit smoothened out there. Both are doing a fine job there. I would say both equally good, maybe with a slight edge towards the Oppo in terms of like sharpness and details, but this is like preferential differences between those two. We check out the telezoom again at 75, which is the starting point for the Rebel zoom on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, and 70, which is the 1/1.5 inch 3x zoom sensor on the Find X8 Ultra. We can see that white balance difference, it's a bit bluer here and a bit warmer here. In terms of detail levels, it appears to be that it's a bit softer here, but you can see why is it 70mm a bit more cropped in. It's just simply because the Oppo has an ace up its sleeve. It can create 24 megapixel shots instead of 12 megapixel shots. So the 70mm versus the 75 is like equaling themselves out thanks to a higher resolution that we have. It's a bit more sharpened up on the Xiaomi there, using like a vibrant again, and a bit cooler there. Otherwise, detail levels identical. When we go in even further, this is 10x now, we can clearly see that here we have a bit of an advantage on the Oppo with text rendition, and not being so sharpened up on text. When it comes to this dog, however, it's quite smooth, so maybe there's some denoising process going on the Oppo, because I think a bit too smooth. It's a bit maybe too over sharpened there, but the details are more worked out here on this dog's picture there on the Xiaomi. But you can also see when it comes to text, it's probably over sharpened. You can see it here on this text, but more dramatic is this text here, where it's like, yeah, both sharpen up a bit, but it's like really, really, really sharpened up on the Xiaomi, and also here down below. So when you zoom in even further, it becomes even more evident. White balance difference, they say the same there, but the text is much, much better on the Oppo there, and the rendition here is much worse. Why is that the case? Because I didn't have AI turned on the Xiaomi. Here I have AI that is automatically turned on. When it comes to the details, however, you can see that the Oppo is coming back with details here at this 10x shot. And you can see that both are basically identical, besides the more yellowish, warmish kind of tone that we have on the Oppo. That is not so realistic, because here the Xiaomi gets the colors a bit more right, because this is actually the nose and not this like orangey, pinkish. No. Otherwise, text rendition again, so much nicer. The AI that is kicking in here, this is actually 20x, not 10x. is super good on the Oppo. And look at the non-AI, just the normal sharpening or algorithms there on the Xiaomi. You can switch to AI mode. It gets it a bit better there, but it's nowhere near to the very clear text that you can see here on the Oppo. So the 6x lens is really doing a nice job there in this little detail retrieval that we see here, without being so much aggressively over sharpening as the Xiaomi is doing. So it's struggling, the Xiaomi, with the detail levels there for sure. When we check out this shot here at 60x, we can also clearly see the non-AI version on the Xiaomi might be the more realistic shot of them both, and I can definitely see some people, without cropping in of course, liking the Xiaomi version a bit better, but the Find X8 Ultra is like, it appears to be that as detail even, like it's clearly AI that's conditioning it or rendering it in. But this is a huge difference where I see the Find X8 Ultra winning. But there is a button on the Xiaomi you can enable AI, and then you get the shot that is very close to the Find X8 Ultra. I even have to say I like the colors a bit better on the 17 Ultra, because it's way too yellow here on the Find X8 Ultra in this kind of shot. So it did some white balance problems there. And yeah, contrast levels a bit higher there for sure. And which one is better, which one is more detailed? Yeah, this AI on Oppo is very sophisticated. It sees that it's probably a brick and tries to render in something. Like a bit of detail. I don't think it has this detail levels there really, but yeah, you be the judge which one you like better there, especially those kind of things that you can clearly see. It is like both struggling with this, because there's so not enough data to really process anything out of there. Anyway, yeah, here you can see also smoothened out, and here it's a bit more noisy and kept a bit more noisy on the Oppo. That might be also the difference between those two. 2x zoom again, 75 versus 70 millimeter. Do we see much of a difference? Again, like the blue here, a bit more correct on the Oppo, where it's a bit too darkened up there. Maybe a bit overblown, a bit glowing here, that we don't have so much here. So maybe the Xiaomi is handling this a little bit better, but little details are super nice captured. Here you can even see that this looks a bit smoother there on the Xiaomi. It tends to be a bit better there, because the Oppo is a bit over sharpening, that you can clearly see here as well. Otherwise, yeah, the price list you can still read there, and the background here again a bit sharpened up, more details there on the Xiaomi, where here it is on the Oppo smoothened out like a normal wall should be, but here we can see the structure of the wallpaper, which is a bit of a good point for the Xiaomi. Main camera sensor, besides the white balance difference, a bit warmer on the Xiaomi in this case, a bit cooler here on the Find X8 Ultra. Not much of a difference between those two, also in terms of sharpness and details. HDR tends to be a bit better on the Xiaomi naturally, because of the low fig and DCG. You can see a bit overblown highlights there, here. And also when we go and check out the shops here and the signs there, it's a bit blowing out there, where here it is not so much blowing out. Might be also the contrast levels, but I'm seeing this here also inside of the shop, where HDR is handled a little bit, slightly bit better. But in the benefit of the doubt, I would give them the same kind of points there, because there's not a huge difference between those two. And when we go and check out the telezooms again, I made the mistakes with, I don't know, 8.6 times, and I saw the 6 times. I thought, oh, that's close enough, and no, I should have stayed with 4.3 and 6. But anyway, nighttime, both handle this quite nice. There's a bit of motion blur going on, because 1/10 of a second, but here 1/16 of a second is not a huge difference between those two. Also shows that the Xiaomi has good optimization when it comes to those kind of things. So yeah, quite nice. Yeah, the colors here, I think the Xiaomi is doing a better separation between the orange, the red and the yellow, where here it's a bit more floating inside, and actually this is more correct, but it might be also because it's a bit more zoomed in. When we go to 30x here, both 30x, but for some reason 668 and 690 millimeters, so a bit of a difference. Here I think the Xiaomi is showing its potential hardware advantage there a bit. The Sport is clearly better readable than here, and overall I think it's a bit better there, with also this text there and against this one, but it's very close together, and you really have to pixel peep to see it. So here, even at night, I would give them probably the same kind of points, even though it's clear win for the Oppo Find X8 Ultra in terms of like AI, when it has to recreate text. That is like not those like customized text or logos, but if it's really text in a book, then the Oppo Find X8 Ultra is winning here for sure. And here again, like the 200 versus 136 mega. I was just thinking that maybe at 135 it will also go to 24 megapixel shot, and then I would have like the same kind of cutout. But let's zoom it out here a little bit and let's see, do we see huge difference? It's a bit like darker there on the Xiaomi rendition. Can we read the sign there on both? Yeah, pretty much identical. So that shows, for one, that the Xiaomi is doing quite a good job with its variable zoom in reproducing the same kind of details as the optical zoom of the Oppo. But you can see some things like here is heavily edited for sure, and this is more natural looking, where you can definitely also see it at nighttime. So what do you think about the nighttime pictures? I have to say, pretty much identical. The biggest difference that I see here is really with the ultra wide angle being a bit wider on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, at the same time handling HDR a bit better, and the details here and there are a bit nicer on the 17 Ultra. Quite a surprise, I have to say, but the rest is basically identical at night. Ranking and conclusion. TLDR, the Oppo Find X8 Ultra gets 4.692 points, and the Xiaomi 17 Ultra is climbing the ranks and gets 4.713 points. So we have a new winner here, which is the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. Let's go into details to see where are the big differences. It's not the main camera photo quality. Granted, the Xiaomi 17 Ultra has technically the better 1-inch type sensor. But for example, in video, the Find X8 Ultra, even if you have low-fig turned on, the Xiaomi 17 Ultra is weaker with HDR than the Oppo Find X8 Ultra. In photos, however, especially also at nighttime, I think the Xiaomi 17 Ultra has a bit of an edge there. But it's very, very close. The differences are very subtle between those two, so I give them the same points. Where I see a difference is in terms of ultra-wide angle camera photo quality. The Xiaomi 17 Ultra is not only wider, yes, it's 1 millimeter, but it is a wider field of view, but also at the same time seems to have the better lens, with less problems with lens flare, and overall the frame is sharper in general. It is not only over sharpening and more sharpening that the Xiaomi 17 Ultra applies. Towards the edges, the Oppo Find X8 Ultra is getting quite soft, where the Xiaomi 17 Ultra is not doing this. So we get 4.3 points here for the ultra wide angle. When it comes to zoom and portrait photo quality, I know it's a very controversial topic, but I keep it at 4.95 points. Almost perfect on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. How is that possible when we had the Find X8 Ultra being almost perfect as well with 4.9 points? Where are the big differences? It is a head-to-head. If you only count in the zoom, periscope zoom, and the different shots that you can take, it would be probably equal. If you would count in the AI processing, Oppo would clearly win against the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, especially when it comes to sharpening up texts. It's much better, and also pretending to be that there is a kind of structure in the photo, because especially like you saw with the 60x shot, it is like smoothing everything out on the Xiaomi, where the Oppo tries to get a little bit of crispiness still in the shot and a bit of details there. But the 0.05 points advantage of the Xiaomi 17 Ultra shows with the portraits. This is why I have them together, the zoom and portrait photo quality. You have to look at also at the portraits. And here, the king of portraits, the Find X8 Ultra, was always on top of its portraits, especially with the sharpness, clarity, details, colors, is beaten by the Xiaomi 17 Ultra's naturalness of the portrait. Everything else is almost identical to the Find X8 Ultra. It has a little bit better white balance, I think, because the Find X8 Ultra is tending to warm things up a little bit too much, in my opinion, where the 17 Ultra may be sometimes getting towards a bit too cooler kind of pictures, but in general I prefer this right now, at least here, currently with the cold kind of weather, where I am a little bit more white than yellow. Let's say it like this. And the naturalness of the pictures. So it doesn't look over sharpened. It doesn't look artificial. It looks like a true optical zoom for the most part. And this is thanks to the optical variable zoom that we have on the 17 Ultra, which is quite cool. And also for fast moving subjects, I know both are very good, But on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, I'm most of the time, I can do it like with Huawei phones. I can just take the shot and not even activate the fast moving subject mode, and I get a fast shot. Best example, Timmy moving around. I only took 2 shots and I got one usable shot. Find X8 Ultra, same Timmy running around, basically not running faster. He's like always moving around quick. I have to take like double the amount of shots, like 5 or 6 shots to get one that is barely usable. So here the Xiaomi 17 Ultra excels a little bit there, especially with the tele zoom and portrait shot photography possibilities. In video recording quality, another controversial thing. I think the Find X8 Ultra was, especially at the beginning when I was testing it, a little bit better with stabilization. I'm not sure what happened there, but the naturalness of the stabilization is gone a little bit on the Find X8 Ultra with updates. I think they did something there. Nevertheless, it's pretty good still, and the zoom in and out animations are very, very good. And yeah, it's doing a very good job. And I think also in telezoom, I think it's a bit better than the Xiaomi 17 Ultra there. Because it's a bit crisper. Maybe it's a bit over sharpening as well, but it's a bit crisper there. When it comes to video recording with the selfie camera, however, better HDR, and I think also, yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It seems like they're using a bigger sensor on the 17 Ultra. It has a little bit of more like vibes of the Xiaomi 17 Pro Max ultra wide angle kind of sensor. Maybe they're using the same sensor there. And yeah, this is on the back, no? Ultra wide angle, not on the front. So they're using a better sensor, I think, on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. And you see it with HDR especially, but also with shots with dim lit situations and so on, that it is a bit better than the Find X8 Ultra that is like coming into trouble there with the selfie cam a little bit there. The rest is basically identical. The main camera sensors is so identical. The colors on both are good. There are nuances and differences in between the colors there a little bit. And I think the coating, lens coating, might be a bit better on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra than on the Find X Ultra. I, of course, cleaned both up. I'm not using dirty kind of lenses. I'm always cleaning them up before I test stuff to be sure that they're not dirty. And I think, yeah, the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, also in low light, both very similar. Even though, yeah, in theory, Xiaomi should be a little bit better. Thanks to 24 frames per second, it's definitely brighter than it has a dedicated night mode. The Find X8 Ultra doesn't have this dedicated night mode for video. At least I didn't find it. And this is the same behavior there basically. So I'm expecting, I was not in completely darkness there, but I'm expecting the Xiaomi 17 Ultra doing a little bit better maybe than the Find X8 Ultra when it comes to the ultra low light kind of thing, because the Find X8 Ultra is really one of the weakest 1-inch type sensors that I know, that when it comes to the real ultra wide angle there kind of thing. Maybe also thanks to the aperture, the Xiaomi might, larger aperture opening, might do a bit better on your sensor. I don't know. Anyway, video recording quality in general, in the end of the day, as the telezoom is a win, I think, for the Find X8 Ultra, and the Xiaomi 17 Ultra is not so, it's losing against the Find X8 Ultra, let's say it like this. I think in the end, they equaling themselves out, 4.8 points, both very good with video recording there. Autofocus performance, both no issues at all, behaving basically the same. Front-facing camera might be also a bit controversial, but I'm still giving it to the Oppo Find X8 Ultra. The Xiaomi 17 Ultra is doing a very good job, especially, as I said, I think it has a better sensor there. But when it comes to the daylight shots, it was softer for sure, especially when it comes to the face. But it felt a little bit more artificial, where it felt a little bit more natural on the Find X8 Ultra. Find X8 Ultra is also sharpening things up a little bit more, but I don't know, it has a bit of like this graininess on the 17 Ultra, but it's not a good graininess in terms of like natural film grain kind of thing. It is more like a bit of digital kind of like painted digital kind of grain that I see there on the 17 Ultra. Hard to explain, but in the end I give here benefit of the doubt the Find X8 Ultra still the 0.1 point more there, so the win here. Camera UI, no discussion, the Xiaomi 17 Ultra is way better, especially with the new UI. It's completely one-handed usage, where on the Find X8 Ultra you can do certain things, but you have to have the second hand then. If you go to a second level or something like this, you have to you can otherwise not reach certain options. And extra features basically the same, both of them. Yes, the Xiaomi has some features that the Oppo doesn't have, but the Oppo has some features that the Xiaomi doesn't have. So yeah, this is something where I would say they equal themselves out there in terms of extra features. And one thing that I really would like to have on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, for example, and where it is falling on its back, where the Oppo has this 4K 120 frames per second slow-mo. Not recording 4K 120 frames per second only, but slow motion. Xiaomi can only do 1080p, then very ultra high, 1920 frames per second in full HD. But again, why no 4K 120 frames per second slow-mo? It only has 4K 120 frames per second, so you have to do slow-mo, not even on device because it looks awful. You have to do it then off device, somewhere else. Then you can use it for slow-mo, but why not on device? It's a big question. And some other annoyances that I don't like. For example, why there's no EV control in portrait mode. I don't know. I really would like to have this. Yeah, you can just tap and then slide down, but why there's no global EV control in portrait mode? Such things are a bit a bummer. Then on the other hand, Xiaomi has fast shot mode. Oppo has the master mode, which is also ridiculously good if you want to take most natural shots, and Xiaomi doesn't really have it. It has not really, it has Leica Natural, of course. You can use Leica Natural if you want to, and this gives you also more natural shots, but it's nowhere near the little less unprocessed Find X8 Ultra processing. I think the closest that you can get there to this master mode might be the Leica M9 mode or Leica M3 mode, depending on if you want a black, white or color mode, but this is only on the Leica edition. Maybe there will be a hack, or Xiaomi will give us, Xiaomi 17 Ultra users, this Leica mode as well. With a firmware update, or someone will just port over the APK file, the camera app, and allows us to do this as well, because it's just software. I think it has to be just software. It's not like hardware and processing. And I'm not even talking about the cloud processing. That is also possible. Then it would be pure software, but also the on-device processing might already result in things that might rival the master mode on the Find X8 Ultra as well. Anyway. Very, very close here, those two together. Let's check out the ranking list. Where does it lead us? It leads to Xiaomi 17 Ultra climbing up the rank to number 3. Shortly down below the Huawei P80 Ultra, and I can imagine that you can see here 4.723 and 4.713 points, that this might be a super interesting kind of comparison, because from the paper here, main camera photo quality should be the same, ultra wide angle should be the same, zoom portrait photo quality is so damn close that we have to check them out for sure. Maybe I will a comparison Huawei P80 Ultra versus 17 Ultra, where I will do some shots, of course, here for the main and ultra wide, but if I see they're basically identical, I don't have to talk about it. I would just compare the zoom portrait photo quality then to get them going. Maybe a bit of video as well to just see which one has the advantage there. The rest is, maybe the front-facing camera might be interesting to see as well. I think the only advantage that the Huawei P80 Ultra has here might be the more flexibility that you will get. Same with the Find X8 Ultra has more flexibility. It can zoom in and out in video mode, for example, but it can zoom in and out a little bit more. It has a wider field of view, I think. But we have to check this out as well. Camera UI-wise, yes, the Huawei still has some issues to go there. And extra feature-wise is also probably on par with the 17 Ultra and the rest there. So probably those two here will be the main focus points of attractions: zoom portrait photo quality and video recording quality. So the Xiaomi 17 Ultra is very close to the P80 Ultra right now. And yeah, some people are asking also Magic 8 Pro, maybe can this climb up as well, especially when it comes to here, video recording quality. I hope I got the new firmware on the Chinese variant right now, and I will hopefully also be able to test this out against the 17 Ultra. I don't know which one I will test out first. Maybe I will do a full camera comparison, Magic 8 Pro versus 17 Ultra, and then we'll only do a zoom portrait photo quality, video recording quality on the P80 Ultra versus 17 Ultra when I deem it is necessary. Yeah, you write down in the comment what you want to see next, and that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Until the next time. Bye. So last but not least, indoors test, and I really have to get these videos a bit shorter, but it was so interesting for me and myself to check them out because they're so close together that you have to want to check more and more and more and more. It would be stupid if I do like a 5-minute video and I say basically identical and the slight edge to the Xiaomi. No, this is why I'm going into so much detail. Log video here on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. Indoors, you see my little studio here. It has a little bit of, there's a bright light, I have to say. There's some other LED and light bulb light there that is also brightening, illuminating this. Log recording, 4K 30 frames per second on Xiaomi 17 Ultra. And yeah, is it true log? Is it not true log? This discussion about this true log or not true log, I really was not following, I have to say, because I'm not doing so much with log recording. Nevertheless, I wanted to show you how it's looking like when I'm recording log and when I'm grading this log, how it looks like. Is it sharper? Is it softer? Are the colors better? I'm using the inbuilt video editor here to apply the LUT to it, just to see if there's any difference to the normal video mode when doing the video in terms of sharpness or details and everything else that you might, colors even, if you think so. What do you think about this one? And let's check out the Oppo. So now the Oppo Find X8 Ultra, same kind of style, same kind of light, nothing changed here. Same external mic, so you are not influenced by the mic's performance. And what do you think about this one here? How well is this doing in this situation? I'm also recording now in Pro video mode, also 4K 30 frames per second and also in log, and I apply a LUT. Sadly, I cannot do this, I think, in the gallery still. This is a bit of a limitation that you cannot do this in gallery, but there's a VN video editor and that can apply a LUT file as well. And I have one LUT file for the Oppo here that you can use, and that also results in good results. So which one is performing better? What do you think about this one here? That's really the end of this video. Very long video. What do you think about such long videos? Should I do such long videos or compress them down? Write it down in the comments as well. Bye.